One of the themes that has surfaced repeatedly on this podcast, on the People Dividend podcast, is the connection between meaning and performance. That's one reason we're revisiting episode 86, Feeling Unfulfilled at Work. I think we often think about fulfillment as a personal issue, but it has organizational consequences. People who feel disconnected from their work contribute differently than people who understand how their work matters. That's one reason I wanted to revisit this conversation. I think it holds up remarkably well. Here's the episode. Welcome to this episode of the People Dividend podcast. I'm your host, Mike Horn, and I am thrilled to have in our virtual studio today, Michelle Schafer. She's a two-time restructuring survivor turned career coach, and she's guided nearly 1,000 professionals, helping them to pivot into careers that they love. This approach has earned Michelle recognition as one of Ottawa's top 20 career coaches in 2020 and 2024. And what's really exciting is that Michelle has a relatively new book called Cultivating Career Growth, Navigating Transitions with Purpose. It just recently launched, so be sure to tune into Amazon, find it on Michelle's website. And what we're going to talk about today with Michelle, and I'm sure many of you in the audience will be interested in this topic, it's how what do you do? When do you realize? What do you do when you realize you're not fulfilled in a job? And Michelle has all kinds of great insights on that. But before we go any further today, Michelle, why don't you tell our studio audience about yourself?
Excellent. Thanks so much, Mike, for having me as a guest. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, in my work, I'm always interested in the career stories of others, and certainly I have my own as well. So, it's interesting. My career spans financial services and not for profit, and I have gone through two significant career transitions myself. I was let go from my job two times due to restructuring, and both of those times really caused me and really forced me to call into question what's really important to me and what would be my next step be as I'm trying to figure out what my career path will be down the line. And so I've been in a position where I've had to really assess, like what's important to me, what kind of work really gives me energy, what kind of organizations do I want to be part of. And it's interesting what led me to coaching after these reinventions was really a friend of mine who is a coach, a very good friend of mine. And she said to me when I was still employed in not for profit before I was let go, she said, I never understood why you didn't do this as a career at some point. And at the time, I loved my job. At that time, I was actually working with volunteers and individuals who supported the work of our local Canadian Cancer Society. And I didn't see the need to make a shift. And then I lost my job and that changed everything. So at that point, I remembered what she said. I followed that thread, that planted seed, I like to call it, and started talking to coaches about their work, what was meaningful about coaching to them, and realized through this process that this is something I really wanted to do. And so, I went and took my first level of coaching certification. I started my coaching practice and that was 10 years ago. At the time of recording, I'm going to be celebrating 10 years as a coach. And, I just feel so privileged every day to work with individuals who are needing support, who are transitioning and trying to figure out what their next path is. So, I like to say at age 46, I finally figured out what I was going to do when I grow up.
That's great. And tell us about the new book. And does it relate to your coaching work, or how does that all hinge together, if it does?
Yeah. Yeah. So the book is really a culmination of my system that I work with clients on to help them figure out what their career goals are, first of all, and then develop a plan to help them get there. And I really believe that everybody is meant to find work that energizes them for an organization that believes what they believe in, where there's a values alignment. And so my book is, really put together of all those strategies, those clarifying questions, big reflection questions, and the steps to put together a plan to not only find that energizing work, but also to help you market yourself through your resume, through your LinkedIn profile, how to prepare for interviews, how to network with confidence and explore opportunities. Believe it or not, it's a culmination of not only the strategies I work with my clients on, but these are the strategies that I used myself when I was looking for work. And so the book is a workbook as well. So it's got lots of strategies and tips and the reflection questions that I mentioned. But there's also spaces in the book where you can make your notes, you can ask questions of yourself, you can put in those things that you need to explore or follow up on. So, really, by the time you finish the book, not only will you have learned about looking for work and the best way to do that, but it's also a product of all your own reflections, your own questions, your own thoughts that will guide you as you continue that next step in your career journey.
What are the goals, Michelle Schafer, that people bring to the job search other than I need a job, I want a job, I got to have a job, I've just been laid off? I think many are prepared to
Yeah.
wait during a job search. They understand that things don't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And yet, what are the goals that people really have to this? Because I think in my own executive coaching practice and in my
Yeah.
organization development work with clients, what's so important to me is that the client have a goal. Now, I will help him or her or them figure out that goal. Because
Yeah.
that's often the most important work that I do in my consulting is helping
Of
clients
course.
distinguish between needs and wants. So
Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of clients who are in transition. In fact, most of my clients, all of my clients are usually in some form of transition. That's why they come to coaching.
Yeah.
It's the end of one order and the beginning of a new order.
Exactly.
But I've seen people laid off. I've seen people quit by choice. I've seen people involuntarily terminated for good reasons, bad reasons, or other reasons. I've been a human resources executive. I've negotiated exit packages. I've
Yeah.
managed retained search. What do people bring to the job search? The goals.
Yeah. I mean, there's really I would say there's really 2 things that I see, Mike. The first is, individuals are really looking for work where they feel aligned. And when
Mm.
I talk about that, it's, really reflecting on over the course of their career, what's the work that really energizes them, fires them up? And what are the things that take away from that energy? Because a first purpose when you're looking for work is you obviously want to engage in work where you are going to derive some energy and move away from those things that obviously are going to drain the energy. But also really reflecting on values and aligning your work with your values. So when I talk about alignment, part of it is the work that you do, but then the other part of it is where you do that work. And it's really interesting, Mike, and you've probably experienced this with clients that you've worked with that, individuals tend to leave leaders, not jobs specifically. And so when an individual is looking at a next step, they want to make sure that their values align with the values of the organization. And those values are really, demonstrated through the leadership of the organization. I mean, one of the things that I remember in the early days of the pandemic, of COVID, was organizations were demonstrating their values in real time. So, as somebody looking for work, you could actually see how is this organization treating their employees, treating their clients, treating their community partners or vendors. And so the alignment really needs to be on that front as well. So that's goal number 1 is making sure that your work and where you do it, that there's alignment back to what's most important to you and those values that you have. But then the second goal, and this is where I see a lot of people struggle when they come to me, is they oftentimes don't have a plan. So one of their goals in working with me is I need a plan. I need some structure. I am casting my resume out into the abyss, hundreds and hundreds of resumes and hearing absolutely nothing. So obviously something needs to change. There's something missing. So a big output of work that I do with clients is help them create a strategy for their job search. And I like to think of a job search strategy as having three pillars, like looking online and working with recruiters, but doing a heavy, heavy dose of networking and exploring opportunities and uncovering those things that you won't find online. When people have a structure and a plan and steps where they can execute that plan, I see their confidence increase. I see their comfort level with being in a job search increase. They know what they need to do. They know now how to action that plan and the results will follow. Where I find when people have no plan, then they don't really get very close to where they want to go. Or what's worse, they just grab the very first job that crosses their path, and that results in a lot of misalignment. I mean, the saying the grass is greener on the other side does not apply in a job search. Like sometimes you can get to the other side of the fence and realize, oh, that grass is pretty burnt. So, a big goal through that work is helping people run towards opportunities of really great fit versus just simply running away from what they have.
I always think these career searches are so important because, as I regularly advise in my writing and my consulting work, that this is about directing the significance of your life. And if you
Yeah.
put it in that framework, I think it creates a different possibility in terms of the career endeavor. I
Yeah.
also think that most career search has happy endings. It
Yeah.
may take a little bit longer. It may not be
Mhm.
exactly what you want. It may pay a little less money. Um, and if you're willing to put in the time, mostly happy endings, mostly
Yeah,
good endings or good outcomes.
for sure.
Again, working all of this. And this reminds me, Michelle Schafer, of the issues of pace and the pace that we bring to our job search. And it also reminds me about first steps. So maybe I
Yeah.
have that in backwards order. Maybe it should be first steps and then pacing. What I've always known, I mean, sort of having followed a dead guy named Dick Beckhard for a lot of my life,
Mm,
that real change only happens when we have dissatisfaction, when
mhm.
we are able to overcome our resistance, and when we're able to take some first steps.
Yeah.
And what I often find with my clients is that these first steps are often the easiest things to do, and yet they're the things
Mhm.
we put up the most resistance to. And
Yes.
in that regard, I'm going to do something I rarely do is ask anyone who's listening, everyone who's watching on YouTube is drop a like today. Put down your resistance, drop a like in the podcast. Others would love to hear that. But what do you think about these issues around first steps and pacing first steps and pacing, Michelle Schaefer?
Yeah, I mean, you make such an interesting point there, Mike, about, really although those first steps, they could be, like baby steps. They could be, like you said, the easiest thing or the most simplest thing. And yet it can be the hardest thing for
Hmm.
somebody to do. And I mean, that's, at the very underpinning of coaching. Coaching is, can really help somebody because it really concentrates on those baby steps. It's not about taking somebody horrifically out of their comfort zone. It's about taking like really baby steps for a while so that those baby steps amount to something big. And, it's really interesting that those baby steps, that resistance that I see, that you see in our coaching clients, they oftentimes come down to, like, I'm going to call them limiting beliefs, like
Hmm.
limiting beliefs that they're like, maybe assumptions and judgments that we hold about, maybe it's a person, maybe it's about ourselves, maybe it's about a certain process. And when we have these beliefs, it prevents us from taking action. And, so like in the context of a job search, a small step forward, which can really be a big step for somebody who's resistant, obviously, is being able to ask for help, or to be able to ask somebody, to talk to them because you're interested in their company, or you'd like to get into the same career path that they're in and you would like to learn more. But people will hesitate to even just ask because there's all kinds of assumptions in their head. Oh, that person's too busy. Like they're probably going to say no. So then that person doesn't ask, or they might think, oh, I can't have that conversation. Like that just makes me too uncomfortable. I'm probably going to flub it up. So I'm just not going to do it or put myself in that uncomfortable space. So when we can acknowledge those thoughts and those limiting beliefs and recognize how we sabotage ourselves, we get in our own way, it can allow that person to start take those first steps, start taking those baby steps forward so that they can make some progress. And the first baby step in a career transition is, I think like as you mentioned, like there's just some dissatisfaction. Reflecting on what is the source of that dissatisfaction? Like, is it the work that you're doing? Or is it the place that you're doing the work? Like maybe you really love what you do, but you need to do it somewhere else. Recognizing, is there something I can do internally? Like before I just up and quit, is there something I can do to have a conversation with my leader about the source of my dissatisfaction? Like those are all, if we take them all in isolation, they're all baby steps. And yet they're ones that people maybe haven't thought about or they feel like they can't do for different reasons. And the pacing that you mentioned, Mike, is so important because I've worked with clients who like they're driven, like they're just like, go, go, go. Okay, here's the first step. Now I'm going to do the next step and I'm going to keep going. And they're accelerating that pace. But other people, it takes much, much longer. Like I've worked with some clients for longer than a year to find work. And I've worked with others that maybe they found work within a couple of months. And oftentimes it's in the work invested and what that person is able to do that will contribute to that pace. But every client is different. And, for some people who've experienced, I'm going to say the pain of job loss, that pace might be a lot slower because they're still processing. They may feel completely blindsided if they didn't see it coming. They may also be an individual that's deeply loyal to their organization and so really feel like it's a slap in the face when they're let go, even though it's a business decision and not a personal one. All of those things will contribute to, what is somebody able to do in their job search? How are they able to move forward? At what pace and what timing? That really varies from person to person.
I work with many research and development organizations,
Yeah.
scientists, engineers. I mean, those are particularly a lot of my world. And like you, I work with, many accomplished people.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients are MD, PhDs. They have both a medical degree and a doctorate in
Okay.
science. Um, and I've noticed three things about careers of these unicorns, of
Mhm.
these this very scarce talent. And one is that they tinker at their careers. They find an
Mm,
organization, they find a team, they find a technology where they're able to tinker at this for a long period of time, given the
yeah.
scarcity of jobs that may be open to them
Yeah.
within their particular field of engineering expertise, EE expertise, or um, a science expertise, immunology, whatever. So you got these people who stick around organizations for a long time because they're great tinkerers and the organization allows them the
Yeah.
space in which to do their work. There are also others which I've noticed just tend to aggregate. In one organization that's very familiar to me, I see three generations of specialists who all came out of the same laboratory at Harvard, three generations.
Okay.
Um, and this is an example of those kinds of organizations where very specialized talent finds a home.
Mm,
And yet, I have other clients, MD, PhDs, who, by the first time they're getting to work in an organization, they're in their late 30s. And they've
okay.
been in school their whole life. They've done some postdoc work somewhere.
Yeah.
But if they're making a transition to industry, they're probably coming into organizational life in their very late 30s. Um, and maybe it's a point where they're asking, well, how can I steer this in a bit of a different direction? How can I take my expertise and steer it maybe to business development, to venture
Yeah.
capital,
to something else, and I find they get stuck in a
Mm,
different way than my people who are good tinkerers in organizations. These people get
yeah.
stuck in a different way in their careers, and yet I also find some others, not quite as much, but who are these catalytic types who will move from organization to organization because of the technology, because they made money, because they got lucky,
For sure.
however they think about it. So those are three things that I see. I see the tinkerer stuck. I see the stuck because I'm not sure I can really recraft all this 40 years I put in. And then I see I can't say stuck. What do you see in your work?
So, I mean, when you look across, like all of those, like I'm going to say like ways that people will approach their career development.
Yeah.
I would say, like what I see most is, individuals who are feel like they're feeling stuck because they're realizing that what they're doing, they no longer have the energy.
Hmm.
So, and this might be something they've had energy for all their life, for most of their life, but because of, a change in, obviously as we age and we go through different, life stages, our priorities in life change and therefore our career priorities change as well. And so I find like there's a number of people who I won't say wake up one day and realize this because, of course, this has been building for a while, but just that real realization that, you know what? If I'm honest with myself, I'm not really happy. And, why am I not happy? And so, really being able to engage with, first of all, the reflection, like why are you unhappy? Is it the work? Is it the organization? Is it the accommodation? What is it? But then it's wanting to be intentional about whatever comes next, but they're not sure what else is out there. So, to use your example, somebody who's yeah, they've been in their job or maybe like that same path for a while. They built all of this experience, have all these transferable skills, and now they're recognizing, "Hey, there's something waiting backstage in my life that I haven't had a chance to pursue yet. But how do I package all of what I've been doing to be seen as a fit for something else?" That's a real challenge for a lot of people. So, like
Very
a
much so.
first yeah, like and what can help individuals who fall into that camp is that recognition that the skills that you've been developing over the years are not only specific to what you've been doing. They like 9 times out of 10, like most of those skill sets are transferable to other places. So helping
Hmm.
people see that, even if you have to, like write a report, like a very specific kind of report in your job right now, well, the skill of writing and editing and clear communication are skills that will follow you to something new. It's just a matter of how do you show other organizations that you have these skills. It's just that you've developed those skills maybe in a very specific industry or sector, but that doesn't mean that they're not useful somewhere else. It's just a matter of how do you articulate that? And that's where a lot of it comes down to resume. Like when you can package your skills and your achievements on your resume in a way that other organizations can see that you'd be a fit, it makes it much easier for the job seeker who's exploring other paths to be able to tell that story of their career. Our career stories are like a tapestry, like they're textured, they have color. And a lot of our career stories, I mean, Mike, for you, I mean, me and a lot of your listeners, probably there have been pivots and detours. Like it's uncommon these days for a career path to have like a straight trajectory from start to finish. There's oftentimes little detours and pivots along the way. So tell that story. Be proud of your pivots. Be proud of your detours. Be proud of what you've learned and articulate that to other organizations because it really speaks to the value that you can offer that's based on all of that experience that you're bringing to the table.
Do you think that there used to be old rules of thumb? I don't think they apply anymore. I'm curious as to what you think that the more you make, the longer the job search is.
I would say I'm seeing that not be as
That's what
accurate
I think.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, for a few different reasons. I mean, one is it just depends certainly on what you're looking for and what the opportunities are. Like, are these growth opportunities? Are these opportunities where maybe a lot of organizations are scaling back? So that's certainly one aspect.
Michelle,
The
you were
other
talking
as
about, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Because I
no, it's
wanted to
okay.
bring this right back to something else. You were talking about resumes. That's why
Yeah.
I was interested.
Ah.
Um, do people still use resumes or do they just use LinkedIn? I've seen people just say, I don't have a resume, just look at my LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah. So if somebody does that, it's probably gonna take them a lot longer to find work, and I mean,
I
there's a
agree.
couple of reasons for that. One is, you're absolutely right, though, Mike, when you're highlighting the importance of the LinkedIn profile, because recruiters and hiring managers alike are finding their top talent online. And so they're doing searches and they're contacting people, like actually reaching out to people about vacancies that they have. So yes, the LinkedIn profile is the first, place where they're going to look to see if you fit the bill. But the resume is still needed. And that's because organizations pretty well everywhere are using what we'll call an ATS, which is an applicant tracking system. And for anybody who's not heard of an ATS, organizations use an ATS as a way of a first level of screening. So, like hundreds of people might apply for this job, but the ATS is really like it's an application that will compare the job posting to the resumes that it receives, and it will screen resumes in that meet their qualifications and screen ones out that don't. So you still need to apply. You still need to make sure that you're applying through the regular channels. And I'll offer one thing too. When you're applying for a job, this is where you can engage other sources, like reach out to your network, see who in your network either works at this organization or used to, or maybe they have a friend who works at that organization. Do what you can to get some extra attention on your resume. Ask people to get it into the right hands. Ask people to put in a good word for you. So when you are applying and you're getting the network to work for you, it elevates your profile. And certainly if you're getting found on LinkedIn and you have a really complete LinkedIn profile, you can't be found on LinkedIn if you just have a skeleton profile that's outdated or doesn't speak to your career direction. Then you've got everything like firing on all cylinders to really work together to help you get that job.
The resume is another marketing tool, an important marketing tool. It's
It
another way to
is.
showcase your talent, your interests, your
Yes. Absolutely. And one of the things I find that people who come to work with me, what they're not doing with their resume that's really important to do is to amplify the resume with achievements and results. So it's not good enough anymore to just simply copy the responsibilities from your job posting and plunk it into your resume. I mean, that tells me, if I'm a recruiter, that tells me what you did. That's nice, but I want to know not just what you did, I wanna know how you did it, like, give me a bit of the depth and complexity around that particular achievement, and then I especially want to know, why was it important? Why was it significant? I like to call it the "so what" factor. So what you, formed a new partnership? What did that mean for the organization? So what you handled this customer problem? Again, what was the benefit to the organization, to the client, to the team? When you bring that into your resume, it just, makes people take notice more. And I also like to think of the resume as kind of like being the trailer to a movie, which means just like a trailer creates interest for you to see that movie and also doesn't give away the entire story, your resume needs to create interest for the organization to have you in for an interview. But just like the trailer, it doesn't need to tell every single thing that you've ever done. Really just focus in on those relevant achievements that line up to the job.
how wonderful. It's been great to be in conversation today with Michelle Schafer. And Michelle, how do people get in touch with you? How do they find out about your book? Where are the best ways? And we'll have this all in the show notes for everyone as well.
Excellent. So there's a few places. I mean, certainly the easiest place is to visit my website,
Mm.
mschafercoaching.ca. And you will be able to, when you click on the My Book tab, you can get a free chapter of my book. So if you want to just try it out and test drive it, and then if you decide you'd like to buy it, the link to Amazon is right there on my site as well. LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me, to follow me. I would say 5 out of 7 days of the week, I'm writing about career transition and job search topics, sharing client stories and lots of strategies that you can pick up on. So do follow me on LinkedIn. And if you felt like maybe you're in a job search, maybe you're experiencing some frustration, maybe you're feeling stuck, like Mike had, what you had talked about before, and your wheels are spinning, you can reach out to me and you can book a complimentary 30-minute discovery call with me, also on my website, and you can book some time, and I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, how wonderful. So many ways to get in touch with Michelle Schafer. And
Yeah.
it's been great to have you as a guest. It's been great to hear about your continuing and new work. And I encourage, all of you who are in the listening audience who have interest in this topic, please be in touch with Michelle. All right. So until the next episode of The People Dividend, stay well. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Mike.